All right, so that's what I want to ask you, Jeff. You agree with me that if Aaron Rodgers is here, the Eagles are right now they're a Super Bowl contender. So you agree with me, and you're saying the same thing about Russell Wilson, and I agree with you. So why the hand wring? Why the hand wringing about first round picks? Thursday edition. Thursday. I got it right, Jeff Kerr. I got it right. It's always
1% better, John.
that's the biggest hurdle for me this time of year. I never know what day it is. I never know what day it is. Every day feels like the same. It's Groundhog Day. And that's what NFL coaches deal with and always talk about. And you're always worried about the next opponents, but here on Birds 365, we're worried about bigger issues, and the main event is always seemingly the quarterback in this town. And look, it just won't stop. And Chris Mortensen was probably the latest. And I forget where Chris said it. You might know, Jeff. I
That's
forget.
podcast.
It was a podcast. Whose podcast was it?
Adam Schefter's.
Adam. I want to give him credit. And he was talking about the Eagles and moving forward at the quarterback position. Look, we've been talking about this forever. Um, what were the Eagles going to do? Were they going to make a move for Deshaun Watson, which never materialized anywhere, and certainly wasn't going to materialize here because number one, Deshaun Watson would not waive his no trade clause to come here, and then you have all the legal entanglements on top of it. So that's on the back burner. Um, people have we talked about Aaron Rodgers at the beginning of the show, and now the stuff that he's dealing with, and he's going to be out for 10 days minimum. Certainly going to miss at least one game, potentially two games, and we'll see how that goes from there. But as you know, uh, the thought process is that this is Aaron's last year in Green Bay. So he's in the mix, but Aaron Rodgers is not going to come to the East Coast. He's just not. So that probably checks off Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson. You go all the way back to this offseason, and Russell said, maybe it's time for a new home. Maybe it's time for a change. And you remember his agent gave a list of potential destinations, which included, I believe, Chicago and New York, amongst a few others. I think Dallas was on
Dallas was
there.
one of them. I think
Uh,
Denver was the other, if I'm not mistaken.
Denver might have been the other. No Philadelphia, however, for whatever reason. Now, guys can change their mind if the Eagles start showing that they have more talent than maybe people thought. If people start to buy in on Nick Sirianni um, from a player perspective, maybe that people don't look at it and say you have an unproven head coach anymore. So all of this stuff is very fluid, as they say. But man, Jeff, I think it's pretty evident the Eagles understand. Maybe they don't know who it's going to be, but it's not going to be Jalen Hurts in 2022. Are you getting that feeling?
I'm getting the feeling. I don't like the feeling right now. I have a feeling you should make that decision after the year because I do think young quarterbacks get better in this league. Now, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is going to morph into a top 10 quarterback over these last 9 games, but I feel like you got to try some stuff out with him. I know Nick Sirianni is trying to do whatever he can right now, and I don't believe them running the ball 46 times disguises Jalen Hurts' deficiencies as a quarterback. I actually think it kind of helps the kid out personally, but I look at it as why don't we see if Jalen Hurts can throw the ball over the middle, can go to his left, can throw a deep ball a little bit more consistently, can do these things before we actually make the decision on this guy. But if I'm being honest with myself, they are looking at another quarterback for next year. And I don't know who that's going to be. And I said, look, I would love Russell Wilson as much as the next guy. There's two problems. I really don't want to trade what it's going to take to get Russell Wilson, even though they have the capital. And two, Russell Wilson has a no trade clause. What makes you think he actually wants to come here and join this environment right now? And that's where I kind of feel Jalen Hurts might be this quarterback for next year, even though they don't want him to be. But I want to see them develop this kid. I want to see what he has. I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback. I never went that route, but I feel Jalen Hurts can provide you with an extra dimension to this offense, and the Eagles haven't really tapped that yet.
All right. Well, I want to take you two different directions. So I'll start with this one first. As you mentioned, specifically Deshaun and Russell Wilson have no trade clauses. Aaron Rodgers has this weird deal worked out with Green Bay. He's going to be able to direct where he's going to want to go as well. So on the surface, it doesn't look like they can get any of those three players who are star quarterbacks. I think earlier this week it was either with Jody or Joe Krause. I mentioned if you put Aaron Rodgers on this team today, this Eagles team, they're a Super Bowl contender.
I would agree with that. I'll say this: everybody thinks Dallas is that much better than them, but if the Eagles have Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, they're right in the mix. They are in that Elite Six in the NFC right now. They're definitely better than the Saints if they have him. And look,
so that brings me. I agree with you. So that brings me back to what we were talking about. The Rams. The Rams don't care. The Rams don't care about draft picks. Why does everybody care about draft picks? Why does everybody care about giving up draft picks for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? Who cares? You're not going to get a more impactful player with those draft picks. Odds are, if you're a betting
you're
man,
definitely not getting a quarterback this year. I think you're going to get impact players, but you're definitely not getting a quarterback this year.
So why is everyone so obsessed with that philosophy of, oh, we have to keep this for the future, other than getting and Tom Brady has proven obviously he's an outlier, but Aaron himself has proven you can play at a high level in the modern NFL at quarterback till your late 30s minimum because of all the protections baked into the game now. So why does everyone care about draft picks over getting that type of quarterback? You say it's only going. First of all, here's what gets me going, Jeff. You say it's only 2 or 3 years. That's all you're worried about anyway in football. You don't know what's going to happen.
The Rams don't care what they're doing 5 years. They don't care what they're doing 2 years from now. No. They bottom out. They get that Vince Lombardi trophy. They could care less.
Well, let's look at remember in the offseason, everybody's talking about Carson Wentz's dead money and the Eagles' salary cap woes. You wake up today. What's today? November.
Yeah, salary cap woes. I wasn't aware because everything I look at says this should. If Howie Roseman would ever get fired, this would be the dream GM job, right?
Yeah, November 4th. I think Jacksonville has the most cap space in the NFL. The Eagles are second after the offseason. So that my point is things change very quickly in the NFL. So don't worry about 5 years down the road. Worry about 2 years down the road, especially if you can get a superstar quarterback. Now, if you can't get one of those guys, then we go to the draft. The name I keep hearing, Jeff Kerr, is Kenny Pickett, Kenny Pickett. And I'm not disparaging any draft guy. I'm not talking about draft guys, Twitter guy. I'm talking about NFL people. And let's be honest, whether you agree with them or not, that's all that matters at the end of the day because they're the guys making the decision. And they believe that Kenny Pickett is the guy rising up the board. Now, I don't know if he's going to be number 1 overall, but you know how this goes.
Kenny Pickett's taken an interesting trajectory that a former University of Pittsburgh quarterback took once upon a time.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this here.
Yeah.
So
the Eagles right now have 2 top 10 picks. I forget where the Indianapolis pick is. It's right on.
What is it? Is it 2, 9, and 10? Is that
Yeah,
it?
it could be. Yeah. Two. So you look at Tankathon. Yeah, I think you're right. It's 2, 9, and 10. They can do whatever they want to go get Kenny Pickett. Now that's a more difficult decision because man, you might have to go up from 2 to 1 depending on what happens. Probably not. It's going to be Jacksonville, and they're not.
Not drafting a quarterback.
Or it's going to be Detroit actually. So Detroit would be more likely. Houston would be in that conversation as well. Um, they would be more likely to take a quarterback. So you might have to go up from 2 to 1, and you might have to give up 9 and 10 to get up to 1. How upset would that make Eagles fans?
It would be upsetting. I'll say this though: you're at 2. If you're at 2, if you say Kenny Pickett gets drafted at 1, you're running that phone. You're drafting Kayvon Thibodeau. No ifs, ands, or buts. But it would hurt for them to give up all that draft capital to move up one spot. And you saw how much the Chicago Bears gave up to move up one spot for Mitch Trubisky, which, by the way, inadvertently led the 49ers to use all that future draft capital to get up and get Trey Lance. So there's going to be teams that, especially when they know Kenny Pickett is going to be the guy. And I've heard the same thing you have. Draft Twitter could say all they want about Matt Corral. They could say all they want about Carson Strong. Our streamers can tell me about Carson Strong till I'm blue in the face. Well, guess what? That's not the guy I'm hearing. Like, the Eagles can pick Matt Corral or Carson Strong at 9 or 10 if they choose to do that. But I am not wasting the number 2 overall pick on that. If you really believe Kenny Pickett's going to be the next quarterback for 15 years, I hate to do all that to move up a spot, but you might have to.
And it's always about the evaluation of a player, and that's my point. If you love a quarterback that much and you're convinced he's the guy, you got to go get him. You got to go get him. But in another way, Jeff, that's why I think it's so much easier to go get the proven guy. I mean, I don't know how other way to say this, but and we'll put Deshaun Watson aside, um, because there are other issues you have to deal with as well, obvious ones that you're going to take a significant public relations hit. You're going to have to convince the fan base that this isn't the worst human being in the world,
If
and
you convince half your fan base essentially to go get the certain quarterback on the Texans, I will not mention.
yeah. So, I mean, there's complications with Deshaun Watson, not from from a pure football standpoint, it's a no-brainer. But again, it's not pure football, and we saw that in Las Vegas with the horrific incident that happened there. But
Speaking of which, I gotta go off topical. Did you see Kadarius Toney's tweet?
I did not.
Oh,
I
God. When you get a chance, look at it. Boy, the Giants are in trouble. I'll just say that. I'm sure our streamers have seen it.
Well, now I have to look at it, but I'll try to do that in the break. But what? When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, and again, you're not going to be able to convince him to come here. I don't think. I don't think you're going to be able to convince Russell Wilson to come here. So maybe it is, already done for you, and there's nothing you can do it. Very similar to, Jeffrey Lurie gave Howie Roseman the green light to go get Deshaun Watson months ago, but he won't waive his no trade clause at this point. So that is a more difficult decision. To me, it's the easiest decision in the world. Tell me why I'm wrong, Jeff Kerr. If I can convince Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson to come here, it's the easiest decision in the world for me. And I'm giving up whatever I have to give up.
I'll tell you what, it's funny because I value the first round picks too, because I think there's a lot of holes that are needed on this roster. Unfortunately, one of them is probably quarterback. And I'm sorry, Russell Wilson before he got hurt, was going to have the most touchdown passes through 10 seasons, beating Peyton Manning. It's actually kind of insane when you think about it. I don't care if it's a passing league or not now, that it's Russell Wilson. The guy has over 4,000 rushing yards in his career already. The guy is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He probably should have 2 Super Bowls. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say probably. He should have 2 Super Bowls. Pete Carroll's a moron. But this guy is a winner. He wins everywhere he goes. He's never had a losing season. It's clear, cut, and dry. I'm a big Russell Wilson fan. I would love to see him in Midnight Green next year. I'll tell you what, John, you say that Aaron Rodgers will make this team a Super Bowl contender. I think Dallas fans would be just absolutely peeing themselves if the Eagles got Russell Wilson. They can say whatever they want. They can say whatever they want about how they're better than the Eagles. The Eagles compete with them with Russell Wilson at quarterback.
All right, so that's what I want to ask you, Jeff. You agree with me that if Aaron Rodgers is here, the Eagles are right now, they're a Super Bowl contender. So you agree with me, and you're saying the same thing about Russell Wilson, and I agree with you. So why the hand wringing? Why the hand wringing about first round picks? I mean, yeah, I'd love to have everybody. I'd love to get, Russell Wilson for a 7th and a conditional 6th.
I like Kayvon Thibodeau too, so let's not get carried. I still love good defense. I'll tell you, this is what happens when you grow with Reggie White and William Fuller.
Yeah, but that's my point. I'd love to have him as well, but all right, if you're going to make me decide, I want the quarterback, and I want the quarterback that's going to make me a contender. Look at Myles Garrett. I mean, Myles Garrett is a phenomenal player. And you have to be phenomenal to be the number 1 overall pick in the modern NFL when you're not a quarterback. You're good. If you're that guy, you're tremendous. And Myles Garrett has turned out to be that type of player for the Cleveland Browns. Now, what does it do for you? It's great to have.
But doesn't Cleveland have an issue right now with a certain position that we're not sure about, even though they're really good?
Who was also a number 1 overall pick, yes, but that's my point. One can put you over the top, and one can't. So to me, it's pretty easy. Remember, we're not talking about Kenny Pickett. I'm talking about the proven guys. We know Aaron Rodgers can play. We know he's going to Canton. We know he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Same thing with Russell Wilson. What's to worry about other than things you can't control? And football coaches always say, control what you can control. You can't legislate injuries. You can't say, oh, maybe it blows up in your face. But that's the NFL in general. You can't worry about that kind of stuff.
That's why I love the situation the Eagles are in right now, because they can pick if they want to get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, or they could pick if they want to draft a quarterback, or just say, you know what, we're just going to use our draft capital and we're going to draft 3 impact players at different positions. That's why I love. It's the ability to pick and choose. You just got to choose the right decision here. But if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm going after Russell Wilson, and I love Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has a lot of potential, but this is why I want them to develop Jalen Hurts, because in the offset, he might be half decent. You may be able to give him up and not give up one of those draft picks. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I see. I don't understand. I don't understand, Jeff. I don't understand what you just said. I'm going to quote Jeff Kerr because I'm a reporter. Might be half decent. I don't want might be half decent.
Isn't that a terrible thing to say?
He might be half decent.
You're going on a date. Yeah, he might be half decent.
Yeah. I don't want. I want Ciara. I want Ciara in Philadelphia. How can we convince Ciara to get Russell?
You got to get her that 1-2 step.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I got to get talking to Russ's PR people. Be like, I actually said something to DK Metcalf this year, and I asked him, if he wants to be in Seattle. He goes, he had to mention Russell Wilson. I'm like, oh man. So if Russ would go, who goes with him? Have your cake and eat it too, right?
Well, and then you start. We talk about, for years, the Eagles were a premium destination because of Andy Reid. in the success they had. And also, the Doug Peterson era, people wanted to come here coming off the Super Bowl. And now we're in a little bit of a different era where people don't want to come here. And they look at an unproven head coach and they look at the quarterback situation. One fell swoop with the veteran quarterback, and you're back into the situation you want to be into, where people will come here. You remember Alshon Jeffrey? Alshon Jeffrey turned down multiple years and far more money to come to Philadelphia.
Now the Vikings have come to Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken.
Because he thought, which is also ironic, he thought Carson Wentz was going to be a championship level quarterback. And he was right for a very short period of time, and everything went astray. And ironically, Alshon became disenfranchised with the quarterback that he came here for. So life is funny. It moves very, very quickly is what I'm trying to say. And that's why, especially in today's league, just go, Denver's going to get Aaron Rodgers. San Francisco is the dumbest organization in the history of sports.
Yeah. Don't even get me started with how the 49ers blew this.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, they could have drafted the guy way back when. They made the wrong decision. Not that Alex Smith
paid for it.
Yeah. Alex Smith, he's from San Francisco. He's from the area. He wanted to play there. Loved the franchise, loved Joe Montana. Wanted to play there. They made the wrong decision way back when. And usually when you make the wrong decisions in life, you don't get a mulligan. Well, they got a mulligan. They knew that Aaron Rodgers wanted out of Green Bay, but they weren't patient enough to wait. And they used all that draft capital, as you mentioned, to get Trey Lance. And now they're stuck with Trey Lance. Now, maybe Trey Lance turns into a superstar. But again, they're in a position where I don't want the Eagles to be in, crossing their fingers and counting on developing a young, raw quarterback into a guy that you hope at the end of the day could maybe be 50% of the player you could have had.
That's what's crazy about it. I was trying to explain this yesterday with Jordan Love making this first start this week. Jordan Love is actually kind of like Aaron Rodgers in how Matt LaFleur is going to use it. That offense, that Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, that tree, it's basically like you hit the three-pointer or you get the layup. And Jordan Love's going to have his layups on Sunday. Can he convert them? We're not sure, but they're going to go deep a couple times at Devonta Adams. Jordan Love's got the arm to do it. And that's why I don't think Green Bay is really threatened if they lose it. I mean, Greg, it's Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong.
They're threatened.
But I think they kind of have a plan of what they're saying. I don't know what they're planning. Jimmy Garoppolo does not fit that system. Trey Lance is a better fit for that system because he can run and he can extend the play a bit. That's what they want. But
Kyle Shanahan, I'll tell you what, Kyle. By the way, is Kyle Shanahan the most overrated coach in the NFL?
Yes, it's the system. I think Kyle Shanahan's descendants are better than Kyle Shanahan, if that makes sense. Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, guys like that. By the way, how does Washington not win anything with that coaching staff? It's insane. They had McVay. They had Matt LaFleur.
Well, I don't know. I see. I'm not as big as on Matt LaFleur as you are. I mean, I think you and I could win. That's how much respect I have for Aaron Rodgers. I think you and I could win 13 games with that team.
I don't know. I find a way to burn timeouts.
Well, yeah, I'm exaggerating. Probably not. You and I could win 10. All right. I'm going to give Nick Sirianni could win 13.
Now, John, do you know your headset turns off with 15 seconds left? That's all that matters.
Joe Judge could win 8. I'll take Joe Judge.
We're giving him too much credit here for being an NFL head coach.
No, but my larger point is on Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan. it frustrates me. Like Kyle Shanahan wants he still wants Kirk Cousins.
I don't get it. Why?
I
Go get your Vikings if you want Kirk Cousins.
Well, and he'd probably do a better job than, speaking of bad coaches, than their coach right now. It coaches every game like it's 1975. But
And he's arrogant about it too.
yeah, and there's a lot of bad coaches. There's a lot, and that's why I say the Green Bay fans are the most spoiled fans in the NFL because they've had Hall of Fame quarterback play uninterrupted for 30 years. Think about that.
It's beautiful. I remember when they were getting good again with Brett Favre, and I just remember people coming out of the woodwork there, all of a sudden Packers fans were like, where were you guys in the last, in the 80s when they were god awful? And
Yeah, people forget, between Bart Starr and Brett Favre, it was bad. Don Mikowski's of the world, the Lynn Dickies of the world. But that's the point. When you get the quarterback, everything is masked. People say, well, Green Bay's so good, Green Bay's so good, Green Bay's so good. No, they're not so good. The quarterback's so good. And that's why I'm saying you change one piece of the puzzle and you trade Aaron Rodgers for Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles are the Packers, and the Packers are the Eagles.
By the way, you want a perfect example? The Denver Broncos. They were nothing before Peyton. Peyton signs there. All of a sudden, you get Brandon Stokely to come, Wes Welker to come, Demaryius Thomas comes in all-pro. TJ Ward literally told me during the Super Bowl, I went to Denver because Peyton Manning was there. You don't even play on the same side of the ball as him.
Yeah.
And, Von Miller, he becomes a Hall of Famer because of all that. They win the Super Bowl because of their defense. Their defense is great. Their offense was great. And Denver loses Peyton Manning, and all of a sudden you got Trevor Siemian, Drew Lock, Brett Rippon, all those guys. They're still looking for a quarterback. By the way, they're going to get Aaron Rodgers because they have so much draft capital now. It doesn't matter.
And I hesitate to go down this path because there aren't a lot of these guys. I think that's what people don't understand. So most of the league, you can win in other ways. Your just margin of error is much smaller. So in the Eagles' case, they have to hope. What was your quote, Jeff? They have to hope that maybe Jalen Hurts becomes
decent. Might be half decent.
Might be half decent. Then they have to have a great defense. They have to have a great run again. They have to have everything perfect, working in lockstep, and maybe you can make a run on a particular season. Now, the consistency is not going to be there. You brought up Peyton Manning. The most impressive thing, who I think is the best regular season quarterback of all time, and Tom Moore, who is a lot of years, one of my favorite. I don't know if it's either my favorite or second favorite quote in NFL history is from Tom Moore, and somebody asked him. Didn't cover the Colts on a consistent basis. It was during the Super Bowl week, and somebody asked him, didn't know how NFL teams practice, and they said, why don't you give? I think Jim Sorgi was the backup at the time. Why don't you give the backup any reps in case? And Tom Moore, anybody who's ever met Tom, he just looked at him and said, "We can do this on YouTube, Jeff." He looked at him and said, if 18 gets hurt, we're fucked, and we don't practice fucked. which was to me just phenomenal.
I remember him saying. I remember when Jim Sorgi would come in, and I'm like, wait, the Colts are gonna blow a perfect season because they want Jim Sorgi to play quarterback. Are they that worried about Peyton getting hurt? What a waste of time.
The whole point of that Colts during that era, and then the Broncos. You would go into a season saying, okay, we're going to start with 10 wins. That's like the default setting, double digits. That's a bad year. A good year, you'd get to 13 or 14. And, that was your sliding scale. That's how consistent.
The Eagles were like that in the early 2000s. It was if they start 2-3 and the sky's falling. And I'm like, Andy Reid will fix this. He's got a franchise quarterback. He's got elite defense. Guys are going to get it. That's why I keep saying with Kansas City, I'm like, give me Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I don't care if they're 4.
And that's where I'm trying to get to. And that's where I'm trying to get to, that consistency. You don't want to make the run. You can, and like I said, if everything's clicking on all cylinders, you got a good defense, a good running game, you got a quarterback who can maybe do some things, you can make a run on a particular year. What you want to be able to do is what Andy Reid created with all the NFC championship games. Look, the more times you get there, the more chances the stars align and you get over the hump and you get one. Ultimately didn't happen until he got to Kansas City. So that to me is the ultimate goal of every NFL team. And if you can get the quarterback, you're a lot closer than if you don't have the
Look
quarterback.
at how
And that's
much Dick Vermeil's career changed, and all those players changed with the Rams. Marshall Faulk, great player, probably would have been a Hall of Famer anyway. Lock with Kurt Warner. Isaac Bruce go in the Hall of Fame because of Kurt Warner, even though he was good before him. Torrey Holt will probably go to Hall. Kurt Warner's going. Dick Vermeil's going to go to Hall of Fame. It all connects.
it does all connect. And what connects next? I'm going to steal from Jody McDonald, Jeff Kerr. It's time to put a bow on the show. Special Johnny Mac edition with Jeff Kerr. Birds 365. We'll wrap it up after the break.